She offered to make me part of the trees. She offered to help utilize my body to water the leaves. She did that without missing a beat. Clenched teeth 2 inches from my face. She offered to have me in the first tree swinging by morning. When she was saying it, I didn't register that this was a moment happening in my life. I was in Lockhart, South Carolina. At the time that I lived there, I was the first Black person to live in that town. In that township specifically. Black people lived on the outskirts, but they weren't in that town. And I'd come there by way of Greyhound. A Greyhound ticket purchased by the person that I loved and that I'd fallen in love with in college, a conservative college, who discovered our love was out of alignment with their standards of conduct. And so we were asked to pack up. Now, when my mother got wind and she heard of the news, it was a lot more than just singing the blues. She said, "Daughter, I know you not. You cannot come here. I don't know if you're going to go there. But all I know is I do not care. I do not have a daughter who is queer." And for many years, she did not. What that meant for me is that I had to figure out how to be free, and it meant that I had to find a place to be. And so she sent for me. Family dynamics are interesting, and families don't always stay together, and her mother and father were divorced. He lived in a separate house, and she lived in another house, and the mother was kind. Mothers usually are. She had mercy, invited me, this anomaly, this enigma, this thing, into her house because she knew that her daughter spoke of love out of her mouth. About me, she knew. And her daughter was pretty determined about the things that she wanted to do. And in that moment, it was loving me. Now, I questioned her, and I asked about the things that happen in the South. I asked if they were part of her life and if they rang true. And she says, "Nothing matters. It's just me and you. It's a love song every girl wants to hear. But deep in my belly was buried the fear, and I didn't know if the words that she said were true. I didn't know when push came to shove, and I knew that it would. I didn't know exactly what she would do." So one fun night by the creek, we did not fight. We drank in the moonlight with cousins and friends, riding tractor buckets. That's a thing. I did it. I do it again. It was fun. But a cousin maybe beguiled by this wild Black child that was there in their midst that they never laid eyes on before was a little too flirty and a little too comfort and had a little too many fun, a little too much to drink, too much fun, and wasn't really overt, but the damage was done. She got wind of that and swiftly took me to the ground. Her face hovering over mine inches away. It was a lot more than just putting me down. She told me, "I can have you swinging from the nearest tree by morning. I can have you swinging, and when the life has left your body, I will gut you with my buck knife." Never knew what a buck knife was. I researched after that. I will gut you with my buck knife and spread your entrails throughout the mountains, and no one will ever find your body. Now, this was before DNA was a big thing and could make sure that criminals did not get away, and I knew that the relationship with my mother needed to be instantly repaired, because I had never felt like someone said something more honest, and I had never been so scared. Strange fruit hanging from the poplar tree. In moments before, she had been an ally, had showed solidarity, had been by my side, had stood up to her dad when I needed a ride in the back of his truck. When he said a stream of words and he would not let me pick my head up, covered in tarp. If I had to be in his truck, I had to be in the back, and I had to hide because no one could see him giving this fill in the blank a ride. I did these things because I didn't have anyone that I thought loved me at that time. My mom had gone her own way. Carry on, my wayward son, my wayward daughter, my wayward child. I don't want the other side of the prodigal story. I don't want to see your return. I just want you to go. I want to pretend that the love and the connection between us is burned. But in that moment, when she offered to make me strange fruit, I knew that this hate seed was planted in her as a youth. You see, her dad had a lot to say. He moonlighted in the evenings as the local grand wizard of his local chapter of the KKK. I'm not exaggerating. That's not just about it rhyming. That's the truth. I was in that town at the worst timing. I was in that part of the matrix in my life, figuring out how to live. I was a kid. I was a kid when I think about it. So while I thought that she had cared about me when she threatened to end my life, I knew that I had to escape. So I waited till we slept, and I snuck away. I remember walking down cold country hills with fog laying low like a blanket, walking to a gas station to use a payphone to ask my mom if I could come home. I picked up the phone. She didn't say much. I said, she threatened to kill me. I know I can't come home, but I need to. She said, say no more. She Western Unioned me money right away so I could get on a bus the next day. That ended our silence. It was a couple of years. We never did speak one word. But fortunate for me in that moment, being alive overrode bigotry, and she figured out a new way to love me. And in the future, we eventually healed. But I will never forget that moment when someone I love offered to hang me because someone in their family glanced my way. Strange fruit hanging from the poplar tree. Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves, blood on the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze. Strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia, sweet and fresh, and the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here's a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the tree to drop. Here's a strange and bitter crop. I will never forget that moment when she offered to make me strange fruit. I have this moment when I move through that and I think I'm so lucky to be alive. But if you are outside of the Black experience, has that ever been part of your life? Has anybody ever offered for an infraction you didn't commit to make you pay with your life for it? That's what being Black in America is like. Billie Holiday sang this song, but it was written by a Caucasian Jewish man from the Bronx named Abel Meeropol, who was stricken when he saw a postcard, and they had those, they were real, of lynchings in the South. An unlikely person to be an ally, but allies are found everywhere. An unlikely moment in time for Billie Holiday to even sing that song. The whole idea of it, a scandal. The 60s hadn't happened yet. The movement hadn't begun. And yet Billie opened her throat and she sung and she sung and she sung. Black bodies swinging from the trees, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Our world is on fire, and I've been looking and watching and mourning, and the thing that's caught my attention recently, and probably because it was a trigger for me, was a strange fruit found in California. A couple of men's bodies found swinging in the trees. It's 2020. It's not 1960. It's not 1998. It's not 1970. It's not 1980. It's 2020. Lynchings are still happening in public. Ahmaud Arbery. Killings without provocation. Philando Castile. Manipulation, coercion, and murder. Sandra Bland. It happens every day. And it starts off in the most simplest of ways. An infraction that you probably didn't commit, but you will be held accountable with your life for it. Strange fruit. America has an appetite for those black bodies swinging in the trees. This might get demonetized. They might even strike it. But that's what happens when you tell the truth. Not many people like it. And that's why so many are angry today, because they do not want to hear what we say, but they have to see our bodies and they have to see our blood. You cannot escape. You will have to look at what our great sin has wrought. This freedom fight has to be fought. We cannot stop. We must not go on. And it doesn't encapsulate the whole movement with just that one song, but that moment when you know that your life is not valued and that that woman could have got away with throwing me away because she was upset. The original Karen. Our love did not cover the multitude of sins. It wasn't enough. It didn't even begin to really touch her heart. Because when she was upset, she galvanized her color, her privilege, and she threatened to tear my life apart. Tear me limb from limb, to watch me swing. She probably would have called her dad. I bet he could teach her a thing. I've been around people who told me about how they play kick the cans while crosses burn in the backgrounds because their father was writing propaganda for the KKK. Different person. That's my life. Same experiences. Ridiculous strife. How many people can you say that you've known that just have casually had parents in the KKK? If you're watching and you're outside of my race, then these are not problems that you will ever face. You will never know why we fought so hard to be free. You will never know what it's like to look up at your son or your daughter swinging from a poplar tree. It's time to evolve.